Good morning, everyone. It's Robin Shea here with day 21 of Before the Fork, the 28-day experience. And good morning. I'm so happy to have everyone here. As you know, and I just want to make sure that y'all do know this, there is no script. There is a general outline. So typically when I sit down to talk to y'all, I know the area that I'm going to cover, but I'm not sure of the insight that's going to pass through me. And this morning I was listening to a great master teacher. Good morning, Deborah. And I would recommend any of you take a listen to some of his work, although it is super, super old school. His name is Neville Goddard, and he's from the 40s, 50s, in that genre, that area. So his dialogue and his communication skill is a little old-fashioned. So you may or may not resonate with him. I don't know, but he is one of the masters that I've grown up listening to. Good morning, Kim. So it's Neville Goddard. There's a lot of information on him on YouTube that you can go and reflect upon. But I found an old recording that he had done. I don't even know the date. I'd like to even just kind of look on here and see what that date was. Let's see if I can access that quickly for you. You know, he has kind of that old English brogue, I guess is the right word for it. Okay, here it is. Let's see when this lecture was given. Oh, for crying out loud. I don't mean to waste y'all's time. Okay, it doesn't say when this actual lecture was given, but it was a while ago. Anyway, there was a phrase in it that really caught my attention, and it's amazing sometimes when I'm looking for nuggets to share how it ties back so effortlessly into my own personal journey. So when I started teaching, and I'll tell you what the phrase is in just a second, but when I started teaching what I teach today, it was very rudimentary. I didn't really know what it was that I was supposed to be teaching, but I knew I was supposed to be teaching something. So I would have clients that really wanted me to create for them a meal plan, a checklist. Really just spoon feed them the entire process. And I always felt this undercurrent of resistance to do that, because I knew that in doing that, in providing them with such a simple formula, was denying them at the same time the foundation of effort, the foundation of discovery that my change, that my transformation was so deeply rooted in. It's so grounded in the effort that I put forth in this discovery process, that not only was I grounded and rooted in what I discovered, but it made the transformation. It gave it legs. It gave it meat. It gave it weight. So I always was resistant, and I'm still resistant to spoon feed the process of what is the 80-20 lifestyle. When people say, what is the 80-20 lifestyle? And I have an overview, and I'll be sharing that overview in the book that's being created right now. And it is very tactile, and it is very ABC and elementary. But without Before the Fork, it's just another diet program. So I always knew that there were two components to this. The component that gave it meaning, and the executional component, which is the 80-20 lifestyle. So when I was listening to Neville this morning, something he said was, and he's talking about faith, he's talking about your religion, he's talking about your commitment to God and to your faith. And he said, are you a wholesaler or a retailer of your faith? Meaning, do you go to the source and do you drink from the source, or do you go to a human that has drank from the source and get the knowledge from them. And that I just kind of had this, that's it. That's it. Before the fork is the source. It's attaching you to the very essence of the spirit that makes the transformation stick. 80-20 is just the cup. It's just what you drink out of, but you fill it from the source. And all of a sudden that resistance made so much sense. The book is so important, and I want to have it completed for y'all by the end of this year, and that is absolutely my goal, is to have that book completed so that you have a tactile process to follow when you're moving into the 80-20 lifestyle. But I always want you to know that you and the source are one. You don't have to go through me. You don't have to go through another teacher. You don't have to lean into the processes so strongly that you disconnect from your source. So this 28-day experience, if it does anything, I want it to open your eyes to the fact that when you base and ground your transformation in the riches of the source, that you can always adjust the tools that you use to reach that ultimate goal. So let me read what Kim says here. She says, before the fork applies to way more than nutrition. I've had so many ahas through this. Kim, that right there is a paycheck. That to me is everything. It's all I've ever wanted to put this work out into the world to do, is to allow others to feel the source. And that source is in the teachings of Before the Fork. That connected me to everything. So just when I say that I'm always feeding my mind, I promise you, I am always feeding my mind, because there are so many different ways to present information that either resonates or doesn't resonate with you at any given time. I have some of the same teachers today that I had when I was 18 years old. When I first, and I've gone into, I think I've shared my my dyslexic story with you. If not, you know what? Maybe I'll share that tonight. Somebody shout out if I've already shared that story with you, and I won't regurgitate it tonight. If no one shouts out that, yeah, you told us that the other day, then I'm going to share that with you tonight, because it's a pretty interesting story. Another thing that came to mind as far as being a teacher and being a student is I've often, when I listen to some of my more elevated teachers, my teachers that have a much broader dialogue than I do, and they use words that I actually have to say, okay, hold up, let me look that up. What does that mean? Okay, there it is. Or their ministry is on a different level. Then sometimes I go back to my work and I look at it and I'm like, geez, Robin, that's Ned and the First Reader. That is really some elementary teaching there compared to some of the teaching that I try to pour into myself on the daily. And then I realized that whenever we are receptive to information, whenever we have a channel open that is ready to be fed, there has to be a teacher on that wavelength. There has to be a teacher that can pour in at the same channel that you're open. So there's room for Ned and the First Reader teachings, and there is room for Neville Goddard and other brilliant minds, Nikola Tesla, just all of these minds that were touched with grace that can pour in at a different level. So where my teachings fall, I don't know, but if your channel is open at that level and the information is what you're thirsty for, then it's going to cross over and it's going to pour in and fill that channel in you. So never close yourself off to teachings. I remember when I was reintroducing myself to the Bible right after my husband and I married. And although I was raised with a tremendous amount of faith, I wasn't raised with a tremendous amount of biblical teaching. So some of the ways that the Bible was being presented to me as a young adult, I couldn't palate. My channel wasn't open there. So I had this book that my mom gave me when I moved out of my house. And it was kind of just a children's book of Bible stories. And I took that book, and that's where I was open. I was open on the level of a child. So when I read these Bible stories, they had a channel, and they started filling me up spiritually at a level that I could digest. And then as I grew in my faith and I grew in my understanding, I was able to go deeper and deeper into the teachings. But never be afraid to be a beginner in your teachings. And never, ever be afraid to go directly to the source. You don't have to pay retail. You don't have to go to a mediator in order to fill yourself up. Remember, the mediator will only fill your cup. The source will wash and cleanse and become part of you. So always know that you have a direct channel to the source. Now, it's not to diminish the retail avenue. It's not to diminish teachers in any way. Just don't make the mistake of empowering your teacher as your source, because your teacher is not your source. You have direct access to your source. So that was my aha this moment, delivered from a wonderful man that many of you may be challenged to listen to because it can be quite boring. But every now and then there's a nugget that makes those moments and those minutes that tick by very slowly when I'm trying to muddle through what he's saying, that makes it worth every bit of effort that you put into it. So go out today, find your source, lean into your source, and identify what your teachers are and where your source lies. And just knowing that little bit right there should be incredibly empowering to you. So when my heart was telling me not to write meal plans for people, that they had to do the work, what it was actually telling me is that's a teaching, and you need to first introduce them to source, but they can work together. Okay? I love you all very much. Go out today, live with your whole heart, embrace life on a completely different level, a level that you've never let yourself embrace it before. Pay compliments forward, continue that circle, make sure that you're not living life on a straight line. Remember to always pay it forward, and it will circle back and keep you going. Okay? Again, I love you all. Have a super blessed day, and go out and be a blessing to someone else. Okay. Talk to y'all tonight.